Well, welcome everybody, and I've been asked to say a few words to introduce Sunil and the Inspiration Academy. My name is Greg Culver, and I met Sunil probably 2 years ago to networking, and since then we've obviously forged a relationship, and after a few meetings we found out that we both had a passion and an interest in personal development, and so since then we've really struck up quite a good relationship, and Sunil has just asked me to say a few words before we start this evening. So what I find interesting is that despite the fact that people recognise the importance of educating themselves, most people out there still do not develop themselves personally, and so I see the Inspiration Academy as a phenomenal opportunity for people who wish to clear out all of the bad things that go on, and we get taught throughout our lives and get some clarity and some focus to lead the sort of life that we all deserve, whether that's professionally or personally, or in any sort of way that we wish to lead our lives. So welcome again, and I know that you're going to get a lot out of this evening, and certainly we wish Sunil all the best in this venture, and I know that the passion that he has for this is going to be a great success. So good luck, and thanks for coming tonight.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you for that. Good evening, everybody. It's nice, cozy, a little bit tightly packed, but I think it's good that way. We are a small, happy family. Yeah. All right, before we get started, just some housekeeping tips. First and foremost, if there's an emergency, fire or anything like that, obviously that's the exit. You turn left, master point is outside. Pretty short from there. And the toilets, turn right again. Both the gents and the ladies' toilets are there. And as usual, the drill is please put your mobiles on silent. Feel free to take calls, but if you could then take the calls outside, we'd really appreciate it. Also, this event is going to be recorded. Now the whole recording is going to be mostly focused on me because I'm the hero for today. However, if you've got any concerns in terms of chances of your faces coming up, meager because focus is here, but if you've got any objection, let us know and we'll try and edit that or adjust that such a way that you're not there in the video. All right. So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge all of you. It's really, really heartwarming to see all of you taking time out from your busy schedules and coming over. I know today's a working day, and you must have had a busy day, and your time is valuable. To see you come here gives me a great deal of happiness. So I'd like to acknowledge all of you from the bottom of my heart. You kind of making my dream come true, because this is something that I've always wanted to do, share ideas and thoughts with people, and kind of exchange thoughts and ideas and share those experiences. So you've helped me to make my dream come true, and in return I'd like to try and help you to make your dream life come true. So that's the whole objective of today's session. And as you can see here, design your life. That's a topic for today's seminar. Now, we all live, right? We're all living. The question to ask ourselves is, what kind of a living is this? Are we just living, or are we really living? We exist. We move from day to day, do the same things day in, day out. At the end of the day, do we feel fulfilled? Do we feel happy? Are we fulfilling our complete potential? Maybe, maybe not. Statistics say most of us are not. And statistics don't lie. So what I'll do is, to start off with, I'll show you some statistics, and then that'll set the tone for the evening, and we'll take it from there. Now, these are all verified statistics from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. So you can check these out on the internet. So that's one of these statistics, staggering. Isn't that really something of a shock? It was a shock to me when I saw it. 20%, that's 1/5, 1 out of every 5 people, will end up suffering some kind of a mental illness at some stage of their life. Now remember, this is something that's caused from internal. There's no bacteria, there's no virus that comes from outside to affect us, to hit us, to hurt us. It's all caused internally. So what's caused internally can be cured internally. And this is going up. If you look at the world statistics, it's phenomenal. I read a recent study in the US which said that 70% of all medical conditions originate from a psychological base. It's only 30% that are a result of external circumstances. Could be a bacteria, could be a virus, could be something outside. 70% is something to do with internal, the way we live, the way we think, the way we deal with our own emotions and feelings. Now that's really, really staggering. And to me, that speaks volumes. It speaks of the way we're living today. You know, we all, and I've been through that, and I'll share some of those experiences with you, and I'm sure a lot of you will relate to this because all of you have been through this and are seeing this on a day-to-day basis. If not you, somebody close to you, somebody in your network has gone through some kind of a challenge, which is generated, which comes in from internal. What are we doing to sort this out? We can. I've seen people overcome these challenges. I've seen people cure this. There's a couple of seats here if you want to come over. There's one here. Would you like to come over? So what I'm trying to say here is that we've got the tools that we need within us. We've got all the resources that we need to sort this out within us. But we've got to be aware of that. We've got to understand that it's not something that comes out automatically. We've got to put in an effort to pull that out. So when I talk about designing our life, it means doing life deliberately. Living life deliberately. So irrespective of, I know I can see a diverse background of people here. Some young, some older, some, could be students, employees, business owners, people who are rich, people who are poor, people who are in between, everybody. The question that we need to ask ourselves is, are we living a life of chance or are we living a life of choice? Really simple. Are we just existing or are we living? Do we do things deliberately? Do things happen to us on a planned basis or do they just happen? And as long as they just happen, we're going to have these issues. So let's look at what do we need to do to be able to live life deliberately. Choose the path that we want to take. Go in the direction that we want to go. Which is a challenge that majority of us are facing because we're just being driven in this whirlpool, in this tidal wave that's happening in 21st century. And we all know it. We're chasing after dreams. When we get there, we find it's empty. So the first thing that we really need to understand, and I'll cover it in two parts. One is things that you need to understand before you embark on this journey. And then things that you need to do to be able to achieve this, to be able to design your life. So the first thing that we need to understand, and this is something that I've learned the hard way really, is that life is not about moments in time. Although we think it is. We think life is about getting the promotion, getting the degree, getting that $1 millionth dollar, or getting married to your sweetheart. That moment, but no, that moment comes and goes. What next? Life's a journey, it's continuing. So we all start off being born, we traverse the journey, and then we die. The two moments in time, being born and dying. But rest of the time, which is 99.9999% of the time, we are spending along the path. Now, if we start focusing on the end points, the beginning or the end, we're in trouble. And that's what we're doing. We're always looking at that point in time, trying to get to that point, thinking that that point is what's going to give us true happiness. But that's not really true. And we're sacrificing the journey in the process. So when we get there, we realize that we've wasted so much of time. And therefore, it's important to understand that life is a journey, which essentially means that you've got to relish, you've got to enjoy every moment. Every day is an opportunity. Every day is a gift. We've all heard these are all cliches, right? We've all heard these. But the point is, how much of time have we dwelt on these? How much time have we sat down thinking that how does it, when you get up in the morning, how does it feel? When you go to sleep, how does it really feel? How has the day been? If the day has not been good, it doesn't matter what you're aiming for, because that day has not been good. That's really it. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. So every day well lived is a life well lived. Every day spent happy is a life spent happy. So life is a continuum. Life is a journey. Now, as in all journeys, like I said, there's a starting point and there's an ending point. The first thing I said was starting point is when you are born and ending point is when you die. But there's another journey. And that journey is from now to the time you get to wherever you want to go. Because whatever's happened in the past is history. There's nothing that you can do about it. Yesterday's gone forever. You're not going to get it back. So the journey starts now, at this point of time. It's always the now. And it's from now to wherever you want to go. So the starting point of the journey is where you are now and who you are now. So I'll expound on that, but before I do that, I'll give you a bit of a brief of my story. Is that all right? Just a quick glimpse to give you an idea of why I'm standing here and saying all these things. Look, my story is nothing unique. It's very simple. It's pretty straightforward. Like everybody else, I went to uni, did my university degree in engineering, and I did my marketing and went into a multinational company. And standard, every father's dream for the children. Get into multinational, climb the corporate ladder, and professional success and monetary success. Now, success can be, obviously, we'll talk about success a little later. But I was fairly there. I was doing reasonably well in a multinational company in a place called Dubai, which is the dream city for a lot of people. And I've heard that said. And professionally, climbing the corporate ladder, doing reasonably well. Monetarily, I was doing reasonably well, So I should have been, by all accounts, very, 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 very happy. But you know what? I wasn't happy. And I discovered this after a long time. I spent, I don't know, 5, 6 years, 7 years, thinking that this is what leads to happiness. Working hard, traveling a lot, achieving the KPIs that the organization set me, and continuing on the process day in, day out, without thinking, without looking left or right, just going at high speed on the highway. And I went on for some time, and I said, there's something wrong here. Because I should be happy, By all definitions, I should be happy. I should be on top of the world. But I found that was not true. Something was missing. It seemed a little bit empty. And I started questioning. I started wondering what's going wrong here. And that's where really my journey started. And that's where I started trying to figure out what is it that I really wanted. And then I found that the whole journey was in the wrong direction. That's not what I really wanted to do. And I said, look, I've got to do a rain check here, stop and get my bearings again and rechart my path. And that's what I set about doing. It took me quite a bit of time. It took me about a couple of years before I could really understand what I really wanted. It's not easy, it can't be done overnight. It took me some time. I did a lot of research. I started reading books. I started listening to people. I started attending seminars like this, listening to people talking in front of the room and trying to figure out what really makes us tick and what really drives us, and what is it that we really want at the end of the day. And that took me along a path of self-discovery and personal development. Just working on myself rather than working on the job, working on the company, which is what we all hear. Work on yourself more than you work on the job. That's what I actually started doing. And it was an eye-opener because it started leading me a long ways that which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, I started seeing things that I was blind to till then. And I said, how come I have never seen this? How come I never realized this? It was absolutely wonderful. And one of the things that happened was I came over here to Perth. That was all part of the plan, grand plan. And I started working on myself, and I started getting clarity on what I wanted, the path I wanted, the direction I wanted. And this is pretty much the culmination of that. The journey still lies ahead. There's a lot of things to do, but this is kind of one of the milestones in that journey. So, and then I started having wonderful days, dream days. Getting up in the morning all excited, getting up before the alarm rings, having a great day, just having fun every minute. Going to sleep, feeling happy. And I said, look, this is magical. How can this be? This is magical. So I started talking to a few of my friends, sharing ideas, sharing thoughts, and I really started doing wonders. And that's when I said, look, I've got to share this with people. Because this does magic. I mean, if you try it out, we read a lot of this, we hear a lot of this. Nothing is new. Nothing that I'm going to talk about tonight is new. You must have all heard about this. But implementing it in your life, trying it out, is the key thing. Reading it is easy, and listening, watching it is easy, but actually implementing it in life. So I implore all of you to go back, and even if you can do one idea, two ideas, please try it out and test it out. And I'm not saying take my word for it. Go there and do your research. That's what I did. I went to seminars, came back, started researching Google and YouTube and whatnot. And I started doing more research and more reading, and that's how my eyes opened up. So, what's the first step? The first step is what I call self-discovery. Now, not I call self-discovery, it's self-discovery, right? Now, what this really means is a lot of us, I'm not saying all of us, because there are people out there who actually know all this stuff and they're doing it, they're living happy lives. But most of us, what we do really is start with the goals. If we ever get onto the personal development path, most of us don't even have goals. Now, some of us do have goals, and some of us have goals written down. But the challenge is that we all start with goals. That's good in a way, better than not having goals. But you know what the challenge is with that? The challenge is they may not be the right goals. And we don't know that. We think they are the right goals, and we set those goals and we start going on that path, going towards those goals, trying to achieve those goals. And we spend a lot of time and energy and effort. We make a lot of sacrifices to try and get to those goals. We spend, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years of our precious lives. We get to that goal, and then we find that it's empty, it's hollow. Why? Because it was never your genuine goal in the first place. It was a goal of somebody else, maybe your parents, maybe your spouse, maybe your friends, I don't know, some society's goals. You thought that was your goal. So the key thing that you need to do first is to discover yourself. Understand who you really are. What are you made up of? What is core to you? What is inside of you? So when we say Sunil, what is Sunil really? I mean, physically we're all the same really, which is flesh and bones and bits and pieces of muscles and so on. But what is it that makes us different from the other person? Do we know that? Are we aware of what we are? So the whole process of self-discovery is, again, very, very powerful. Just understanding what your values are. Understanding what your passions are. What really makes you tick. What gives you that extra drive, energy to do what you want to do. So identifying your values, identifying your passions, your beliefs is absolutely, absolutely important. Because this is what you really are. This is what's core to you. And it's important, once you understand this, when we go to the goal setting, that those are all aligned to these. Once they are, it becomes easy. Because these are the driving forces. This is the fuel in your car. If you don't have this, you're not going to be able to do it. It's going to be a struggle. And that's what most of us, again I'm saying not all of us, most of us, you may not admit it, but look deep inside and you'll know that it's a struggle. We are actually, putting in a lot of energy and effort trying to get somewhere, thinking that's where we want to go. But at the end of the day, we feel, is this life really? Is this what life's all about? So it's important that we understand who we are and what we are. Now, just to, I just found this very fascinating because this guy over there, I'm sure all of you know who this guy is. He passed away recently, and he achieved a lot in his life. He talks about passion, so I just want to put that for you. Just watch.
People say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing, and it's totally true. And the reason is because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, if you're not having fun doing it, and you don't really love it, you're going to give up. And that's what happens to most people, actually. If you really look at the ones that ended up being successful, unquote, in the eyes of society, and the ones that didn't, oftentimes it's the ones that were successful loved what they did so they could persevere when it got really tough. And the ones that didn't love it quit because they're sane, right? Who would want to put up with this stuff if you don't love it? So it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of worrying constantly. And if you don't love it, you're going to fail. So you got to love it. You got to have passion.
So you heard it from somebody who's achieved a lot in his life, in spite of all the hurdles that he went through, because he was so passionate about what he wanted to do, nothing came in his way. So the whole idea here is that if you're doing something that you really love doing, that you're passionate about, it's not hard work. It's not work at all. It's fun, really. And that fun element will take you all the way till you reach your goal, no matter how high, how large, how big, how far the goal is. And that's a key. We do a lot of things which we think have to be done, we're not passionate about, and we end up running on the treadmill, and wonder why we feel so tired at the end of the day. Because if you're doing something that you're passionate about, you won't feel tired. Think of something that you are passionate about. Could be a sport, could be, playing on the PlayStation, could be something else, which is physically exerting. You're exerting a lot of effort. You're actually burning a lot of calories, but you still enjoy it. You don't really feel tired. You don't feel as if your energy is sapped. You actually feel more energetic. Why is that? Because there's an inner fuel that actually drives you. And if we can all do that, and this starts right from school and uni days, because we are told to do what we have to do. We're not allowed to choose what we have to do, what we like doing. It's traditionally the system where the parents insist that the children do certain things because the parents want that to be done. And that's where it starts, and the journey goes on and on and on. And I don't know, maybe 30 years, maybe 40 years, maybe 50 years, 60 years at the age of whatever, we look back and we realize that we spent all these years on a path that has no meaning for us. So once you have done the process of self-discovery, once you've gone through who you are, understood yourself as much in detail as possible, all your traits, your strengths, your weaknesses, just like we do SWOT analysis in corporations, you've got to do a SWOT analysis on yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are the opportunities where you can grow? And what are the threats? What are your weak habits that hold you back? What are your limiting beliefs that hold you back? Once we do this whole exercise of understanding ourselves completely, as much as possible, because it's always a work in progress. You can never reach a stage. I'm still learning about myself. Standing here before you, talking to you, I'm learning about myself. Going through this whole exercise, setting this whole thing up, I'm learning about myself. And sometimes you've got to put yourself on a limb. That's how you learn about yourself. You've got to get out of your comfort zone. That's how you learn about yourself. Because you don't stretch, you don't know how much you can stretch. So once you have done this exercise and you're clear about what you want, then you go back to the goals. You might have had goals, but if you don't have goals, that's the time when you want to do goals. Because if you don't have goals, where would you go? There's no direction. That's when you go, maybe round and round, or running on a treadmill, not going anywhere, all those cliches that come up. You seem to be working so hard but getting nowhere. You seem to be doing the same thing day in, day out, and wondering, where am I going when this happens? At different points of time, it happens to all of us. But some people, it happens consistently. That's very, very scary. So we've got to set ourselves goals. And I cannot stress on this enough as to how important this is. I know a lot of you would have goals, and absolutely fantastic. But make sure that those goals are aligned. So if you've got goals, go back and just relook at your goals and make sure that those goals are really aligned and congruent to who you are. Because when those goals are congruent and aligned to who you are, your values, your passions, they become inspired goals. And when you have inspired goals, you don't need external motivation. Motivation comes from inside. Because you're inspired, you've got inspired goals, you've got unlimited energy. You don't need anybody else to be able to prop you up when you start to fall. You'll fall, you'll get up. You'll fall, you'll get up. You'll fall, you'll get up, and you'll go on. Why? Because there's this internal drive that comes in. And that's because you've got your goals aligned to who you are. So, if you've already got goals, great. But if you don't have, there are a couple of things that you can do to set goals. I'll share 3 different ideas with regard to goal setting. Number 1, this is what's called a 7-step process to setting goals. It's very simple, very straightforward. For those of you who haven't heard about it, I'll just run through that. And you could make it 8 steps if you want to, but it's called a 7-step process. The first step is thinking about the goals that you want in your mind. Just think about what is it that you really want out of life. Where do you want to go? Who do you want to be? Who do you want to be with? Where do you want to be in whatever time? Those goals in your mind have to be there. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is get those goals from your mind onto paper, black and white. Put it down. It's very, 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 very powerful. We might, laugh at it and say, oh, I know what my goals are. Why should I write it down? But mind you, writing it down is very powerful. Try it and see. So get those goals down on paper. That's step number 2. Step number 3 is to actually look at those goals and make sure that those goals are inspired goals. Make sure each and every goal is an inspired goal. Because you could have wishes and dreams over there. You might have stuff over there which you think are supposed to be your goals, somebody else's goals. Make sure that they're inspired goals. Make sure that they're prioritized. Now you might have 10, 15, 20, 30 goals. First step is to write down as many goals as you can. But then prioritize it, because you can't get all your goals. None of us can get that. We might get the 80-20 rule. That's really what happens. 20% of our goals is really what we can get to. So prioritize your goals and make sure that you've got the right priority, that you've got the main goals first. Break those goals down into tiny bits, small chunks. Because some of those goals might be big, really huge goals. And we need to have big goals. But you look at the big goal, you can't gulp that down. It'll choke you and hold you back. So break it down into biteable chunks, step by step. You're not journeying for 1,000 miles, start with the first step. So just get that into smaller bits that you can handle, and you find it easy to go along. 6th goal, 6th step, just do it. All those steps that you've written down, you've chunked it down, you've got to do it. It's all good to have all this in theory, have it in your mind and know everything, but if you don't do it, it's pointless. It's not going to take you anywhere. So you've got to do it. Action is important. So once you take action, you start moving along the journey. So you start moving along the journey towards your goals. But now, what happens is, just like anywhere else, you might start, moving off the course when you go along. That's what happens. That's how life is. Even though we know our goals and we start taking action, but we find sometimes that action doesn't take you in the right direction. So what we do then is we stop, review, and do course correction. That's really it. Simple 7 steps. And if we can follow this on a diligent basis, the key is to follow this, with each of our goals, we start seeing magic happening. Really, I mean, it's really magic. The other thing that I want to kind of highlight, and I tried this with myself, you know, I've tried this, is that a lot of us have goals where we concentrate on a specific area in our life. Now what we need to realize is that we are multidimensional beings. As human beings, we are multidimensional, we're not one-dimensional. We play different roles in our day-to-day lives. We're spouses, we're children, we're parents, we're friends, we're neighbors, we're members of the community, we're members of associations, whatever. We play different roles. And we've got different responsibilities. And therefore, we've got to have goals in each area of our life. Now, I've identified 7 areas that, you know, that's, to me, I've done it. But you could have your own areas depending on what's important. But the key is to have goals in each of these areas and move forward parallelly. And we've all seen people who wanted to be extremely rich and successful, and they've gone ahead, worked on that, focused on that, become extremely professionally successful and made a whole lot of money. But then when they've reached there, they found that they've lost out on a lot of other things. They've lost their family, maybe they've lost their health, maybe they've lost their morals in the whole process. And again, it leaves them empty, it leaves them pained, it leaves them hurting. And we've seen this many a time. I mean, I'm sure you can relate to that. So it's important that rather than focusing on just one area, because we tend to do that. And that's because one specific area, especially material success, has become one of those areas that's become, you know, so much of focus in today's world that we tend to put a lot of effort into that. So material success is something that, yes, we need, absolutely, but not at the cost of other things. So in my view, 7 areas to me, family. Well, this is my priority, but could be different again for you. Family, health, relationships or social, professional, financial, spiritual, and emotional or intellectual. You know, growing your intellect, hobbies, and research and personal development, studies, and so on. So these 7 areas, and we've got to have goals in each of these 7 areas. That's important. So when you list out your goals, make sure that those goals have been broken up into these areas. Make sure you have at least some goals in each of these areas. And work towards those goals parallelly, not one at the cost of the other. So we've already spoken about inspired goals, and if you've got inspired goals, trust me, take my word for it, try it out, see how it works. You can take a small goal for a shorter period of time and try it out and see. And so that's a 7-step process. Now, there's one thing that we can do when we set goals is what we call the SMART methodology, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this. It's basically called specific goals. So we say dreams. Dream is something which is wishy-washy, you know. It's out there, we don't know. It's a big goal, but it's, you know, a dream with a deadline is called a goal. So what we're trying to do here is making those goals as realistic as possible, breaking that down into time-specific, numbered goals. Why? Because we can then monitor our progress on the journey to going to the goal. We have to have milestones, because otherwise how would you know where you've reached? So SMART is basically an acronym for specific. So you're getting specific goals, measurable goals, you're putting down numbers, you're putting dates there, and achievable goals. Like I said, dreams can be there, but then you've got to break that down into goals so that you can go towards it. Otherwise you'll lose faith and hope in between and you won't go there. So achievable, realistic, and time-bound. So essentially these 3 steps, set the goals and then go after that. Now, a couple of other things that we need to understand. So this is essentially just a broad outline of what, to me, is the basic framework, is to understand who you are and where you are, who do you want to be and where you want to be. Because the whole journey of life is about growth and progress. And growth is not just about material, but about who you grow to be, who you become in the whole process. That's what is really lasting, everything else comes and goes. So, but there are a couple of things that before we embark on this journey, we've got to understand. And it's very interesting because we all have certain understanding of these ideas or concepts or terminologies that I'm going to be using, but when you really get into it, you realize that the meaning is totally different. It's not what you really thought all this while. So let's just go through that and see if you can relate to that. And the first thing I come up with is success. So we all have different definitions for success. We all want to be successful. We all strive to be successful. That's really one of our paramount goals in life. But the point is, how do we define success? And all of us have different definitions of success. So, going back to where we started off with goals, success has generally been defined. I mean, if you look around and look at some of those really masters who have spoken about success, they claim it to be, and it resonates with me, and I'm going to share that with you. Success is defined as the progressive realization of a worthy goal. The progressive realization of an inspired goal. So success is not again a point in time. It's not about getting to a place. It's about the whole journey of going to that place. I mean, that's profound to me. We all, there's this saying that if you can't find happiness on the side of the road, you're not likely to find it at the end of the road. So we all think that it's at the end of the road that we're going to find everything that we want. And we forget the journey. We lose sight of, we don't look around. We just so much focus on the end point, and we just lose sight of everything that's around us. And this is really the biggest challenge that we're facing today. We say we're driven to achieve something, and we're driven and we're ambitious and so on. Great, fantastic. But don't lose sight of the journey. So success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal or an inspired goal. So it's all about the journey again, enjoying, relishing each morsel, each step on the journey towards success. What can be more fun than that? Once you do that, it's easy for you to get to success, because success is a moment. Once you get whatever goal you want, you set another goal, because that's finished, right? Where do you go after that? So you wanted, whatever, $1 million, you get $1 million, finished. That's gone. You wanted a Ferrari, you buy a Ferrari, finished. What else? So you go to the next goal. Life can't end there, right? So what happens if you're very ambitious, you're very driven, you want a Ferrari, and you plan for 10 years and you get it in 3 years? What then? What after that? So the whole idea is, obviously, once you get to a goal, you set another goal, you set another goal, you set another goal, and we grow in the whole process. But we'll come to what we need, which is growth. This is very interesting, and this is something that has fascinated me no end. And the reason why this has fascinated me no end is because if you look at nature, and if you look at a lot of the ancient teachings and books, and you find that a lot of people now talk about pretty much the same thing. And they say that life's meant to be effortless. Nature has designed itself in such a way that it's supposed to be effortless. It's supposed to be easy. We don't agree with that, right? Life's not easy. Life's extremely hard. It's a struggle. But the point here is, and I try to figure out, what does this really mean? And I come back to the same thing of, are you doing something that you love doing? Or are you doing something that you've got to do because of whatever reason? So we've got to make sure that we are aligned with who we are, what we are. And if our goals are inspired goals, we'll find that the whole journey becomes fun and therefore no effort. So every step of the journey, every moment of the journey becomes effortless. That's what really it means, the law of least effort. And if you look at nature, we find that happening. We don't find birds putting in effort to fly or fishes putting in effort to swim. It just comes naturally. That's what they're meant to do. So if we understand what we are meant to do as human beings, as individuals, then it becomes effortless for us. Because we're now doing what our calling is, what our true calling is. And for that, you've got to look inwards. The only place you can find that is inside of you, not outside. But what we do is, most of the time, we look outside. We look for this everywhere but inside. And it doesn't take too much effort. Just, a few moments, and if you can look inside, you'll find the answers to a lot of the questions that you've been asking yourself over and over and over again. So the law of least effort is something that I truly prescribe to, and it's something that we all should try. So what I'm trying to tell you is, if life seems a struggle, there's something wrong. You've got to stop. You've got to sit down. You've got to ask yourself the question, why is it happening? Because life's not meant to be a struggle. Life's not meant to be hard. So there's definitely something that you can do about it. You've got to stop, and then reflect. And ask yourself the question, I've heard, and do your research and find out. Life's supposed to be effortless, but it's effort. Putting in a lot of effort, it seems to be a struggle. Why is it? What's going wrong? What am I doing wrong? Where am I going wrong? And once you try to search for those answers, you'll find those answers. It's just a matter of going out there and looking for it. Now, this is a fashionable term, I guess, because a movie came out which kind of made this very famous, and a lot of you must have seen the movie. The movie is called The Secret. Prior to The Secret, I guess a lot of us didn't know it. I had heard of it, but obviously the movie became very popular, and people started talking about law of attraction and just thinking things and things happening and so on. There's a lot unsaid in The Secret, obviously, because that's meant for people to start thinking, and it did instigate a lot of people to think. Again, the law of attraction is really, it shows you how powerful your mind is, how powerful your thoughts are, how powerful your emotions are, how powerful your feelings are. And these are all within you. I mean, these are the resources that you have to conquer any challenge, to overcome any challenge, to get whatever goal you want to. So the law of attraction really, it says, for those of you who don't know what it is that your thoughts manifest themselves in the external world. So thoughts turn into things. And they say thoughts combined with feelings and emotions creates those things in your life. But what it really means is that thoughts combined with emotions and feelings get you to do something, and therefore creates the things in your life. So you've got to have action, obviously. But it's kind of, they left it unsaid because they assume that action is going to naturally follow the desire, the dream, So law of attraction is nothing but a reflection. I call it law of reflection, really. It's nothing but a reflection of your inside, who you really are. What is inside you is getting reflected what is outside. And you can see this every day in your life. If you've got a bad mood, you're in a bad mood, you're disgruntled, you're irritable, and you go out and you start finding people irritable and disgruntled and unhappy. It's just a reflection, really. Because you send out those waves and that's what comes back to you. I mean, it's amazing how powerful this is. A lot of people are skeptical, but try it out and see. It does work. Now, that's not to say that you think about a Ferrari and the Ferrari appears. But the point is, if you think about that Ferrari often enough, deeply enough, long enough, and you associate your emotions and feelings with that, which means that you want it badly enough, you'll do something about it, right? You start taking some action towards getting that. And action always results in something happening. That is really what it means. So the point I'm trying to make here is, again, that we all look so much outwards. We look at the external world and look for answers to our questions outside. But the point I'm trying to stress over here is they're not outside, really. They're all inside. And that's such a powerful and profound concept that once you understand the implication of that, it empowers you no end. Because we've got all the resources within ourselves. We don't have to depend on anybody else. we can create our life the way we want to. We can design our life, really. Because most people would think, how can you design a life? Is it something that's in your control? It is. I'm not saying 100%, but to a large extent it is. Because whatever you attract is what's inside of you. And if you understand that, if you can focus on that. Now, there's another area that I'd like to share some thoughts on. And again, I came to be aware of this maybe a couple of years back, and I've started applying it everywhere, with my friends, in my family, with my work colleagues. And I found it working. And so I'd like to share it with you because it is powerful. And the thing here is because it can help you in your relationships, which is an area that we all struggle in some way or the other. Not all relationships, but some relationships. This can help you greatly in relationships. This can help you greatly in your leadership. If you've got a team of people working under you, it can help you greatly. It can help in organizations, team dynamics. So what it really is, I'm sure you've seen this. A lot of you would have seen this. This is a very old thing. A guy called Abraham Maslow, many, many years back, I don't know exactly how many years, but many, many years back, came up with this needs hierarchy, the needs pyramid called Maslow's hierarchy, and he spoke about the basic needs and esteem needs and self-actualization needs and so on. It's a little confusing, so I won't really look at that. But what came out of this was something called human needs psychology, which really states that all of us as human beings, irrespective of what our background, what our age, where we come from, whatever, these 6 core needs are inherent in all of us. And everything that we do, everything that we say, our behavior is based on these needs inside of us. So if we can understand that, if we can understand the needs that are there inside of us, as well as the needs that are there in people around us, it'll really make things easy for us to relate to people. It's all about people. So, there are 2 kinds of needs. There are 6 needs, really. 4 are called external needs, or the needs of the personality, which is kind of an external need. And there are 2 needs which are internal needs. The first need, which we all need, to some degree or the other, is the need for certainty. We want to be certain, at least in some areas of our life. We want to be certain that our job's going to be there. We want to be certain that our spouse is going to be there with us. We want to be certain that our house is going to be there when we come back. So there are things that we want to know that our car is going to start when we put the ignition key into that. So there's this need for certainty inside us. And that's why a lot of things that we do is based on protecting our certainty. And you can see this in organizations where some people, for them, what's more important is certainty. It's not the position or the increase in pay that's important, but the certainty. They don't want to get moved from their place. Be comfortable. So that's certainty. The second need is kind of an opposite to that. It's a need for variety, or you can call it uncertainty, adventure, mystery. And we all have, to some degree, need for that. Actually, these 2 go hand in hand. So we have a need for certainty, and we also have a need for variety. Now, different people have different levels of these needs. That's the key. All of us have these needs in some extent or the other. But what's important is who has what needs more, who has what needs less. And then you have the need for significance. And that's what comes up in one of those Abraham Maslow's hierarchical pyramid. The need for significance, the need that we matter, to know that we matter, the need for recognition, the need for acceptance, the need to know that somebody cares for us. We matter to somebody, we matter in this world, we are something here. And it's a very, very important need, core need that we have. And the 4th need is love and connection. We all need that. It's a basic human need. Now, these 4 needs are external needs. We express that, we see it externally expressed, we see it around us, we need other people to have these. The 2 needs which we call spiritual needs or internal needs are growth. We need to be growing. there's no way we can stand still. We've got to be green and growing or ripe and rotting. So we've got to grow. The growth is an inherent spiritual need. It's got nothing to do with other people. It's about you feeling that you're growing, you're evolving, you're becoming something bigger than what you were yesterday. And the final need, that's why we call it spiritual need, is contribution. Contribution is something where we feel that we're giving and not so much receiving. Because otherwise it's always get, right? We want to get, we want to get, we want to get, we want to get. Give us, give me, I, me. That's all what it's about. But when we get to a stage where this need comes in, that's where we say we give. Because then we realize that giving is actually getting. Because we're fulfilling a need of ours. So you might say, oh, what did, let's say, Mother Teresa get when she did all that? She gave. She got this. This was a need for contribution. It was so strong that she spent her life achieving that need, fulfilling that need. A lot of us don't have it to that extent. And therefore, we focus more on getting rather than giving. So the key here is, again, to understand that all of us as human beings, as individuals, have these 6 needs to a certain degree. Now, when we deal with people, if we can try and understand which of these needs are the top 2 or the top 3 needs that they have, we can deal with them accordingly. So let's take an example of, somebody in your team, in your organization, who has a need for certainty. And he's doing an exceedingly good job, you're the boss, so you go and tell him, hey, no, John, you're great. I hope there's no John. Oh, John's here, sorry. I'll have to change the name. But you're doing a great job, we're very happy with you, and we're going to promote you. Your pay is going to go up by 30%, we're going to give you a bigger designation, or we're going to move you over to the factory or the mine site in Pilbara, or Karata, or whatever. And this person's need for certainty, stability, comfort, consistency is so high that he's uncomfortable with that. Even though he gets a higher paycheck, even though he gets a bigger designation, it doesn't make him happy. What he really needs is to be assured that, yep, you're good, nobody's going to disturb you, nobody's going to bother you, you're good where you are. That's going to make him more happy. So when you look at the people in your team and you want to make sure that they're going to be rewarded fairly for whatever they've done, you've got to look at their needs. You've got to understand what really is their top 2 driving needs. And if you can reward them based on those needs, you've done the job. That's a reward. But if you don't, then it's not. So somebody else who wants variety would love the chance of going to some other office and doing it all over again. So by just allowing him to do that and not giving him a higher paycheck, not giving him a designation, would be enough for him to be motivated. Relationships. I mean, we all have issues and challenges with relationships, sometime or the other. None of us are immune to that. However much we love somebody else, we still have those moments where we, I can see those knowing glances and knowing looks in the eyes of people. Yeah, we all have that. I mean, this is the reality. Now the thing is, if you can understand what drives the other person to say or do or behave in that particular manner, you've got the problem solved. So let's say somebody says something to us that irritates us, that affects us emotionally. Instead of looking at us, if we were to look at them and understand what is that need, let's look at these needs and see what needs are driving that particular person. And if you can look at those needs and work based on those needs, react based on those needs, we've got the problem solved. Because now we're coming from a place of understanding rather than a place of judgment. Because otherwise we're judging based on our viewpoint, which I'll come to a little later. Our map of the world. But once you understand these needs, and if you can start looking at each person, it's not easy. I'm still trying, I'm still working on it. But if you can do that, it works wonders. Go back and try this out. Do a little bit of research. There's lots of material on this on the internet. Go ahead, do some reading, and just try it out with whoever you want to. Try it for the next 1 month and see how it goes. And you'll see results. Magic happening. Yeah, this is look. This is a concept that is about, again, relating to other people. We all have our own map of the world, based on our background, based on who we are. Now, the challenge for us as human beings is that we must stop judging other people, events, circumstances, behavior, based on our map of the world. It's tough, because that comes naturally. But that's what is creating all the issues, challenges, problems, tensions, wars, violence, everything. Why? Because we're looking at the world from our map and purely from our map, and we're judging everything based on our map of the world. And you've heard it said the map is not the territory. It's only our map. It's only our perception of reality. You know, what is reality? I mean, there's really nothing called reality. And this is again a profound discovery that I made some time back. There's nothing called reality. And there's nothing called meaning. So if I say life has no meaning, you'd say, what? How can that be? Life really has no meaning, no inherent meaning. The meaning is what you give it. So it's your meaning that you give it. And that's the same with anything that happens in the external world. Be it a person, you view that person from your map. Be it an event, you look at that event from your map. Somebody else might look at that from their map and view it totally differently. So where's the reality? What's real? What's the truth? We don't know. Because all that we see is from our viewpoint. Now the challenge is, if we can shift that from our viewpoint and start looking at things from a slightly different perspective, it's very powerful. And the reason why it's powerful is because then we can relate to other people better, we can relate to their opinions, we can understand their behavior, and we can understand their viewpoint. And you can see that's what's happening. Actually, you know, all the violence that we see around is because of this, because we don't accept other people's viewpoints. We don't look at other people's beliefs and understand where they're coming from. And this is typically what, you know, we've heard of as putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Literally being them and seeing why they're doing what they're doing, why they're saying whatever they're saying, why they are behaving the way they are behaving. There must be a reason. If you were in their place, would you do the same thing or not? Once you realize that, then comes out what's called empathy. You know, you're able to relate to another person the way he is feeling. That's the best form of building up a relationship. That's the best form of rapport building with somebody else. Because once you can do that, it's very, very powerful. So we've got to realize this. And the key here is not so much trying to do something physically, but just being aware of it. Because awareness is 50, 60, maybe 70% there. Just being aware of these concepts and just keeping this at the back of your mind. And every time you kind of get irritated, offended, insulted, you know, you start getting into this whole story of judgment, you stop yourself and become aware of this and say, I wonder why that person is saying that. Or I wonder why that person is doing that. Let me try and understand why. Problem solved. 90% of the conflict is gone. And the reason why a lot of us feel burdened, tired at the end of the day, feel life is a struggle is because we carry all these burdens. It's as heavy a burden, if not more, than anything physical. You know, you've been the whole day, you've met people, somebody has said something that you didn't like, somebody has done something that you didn't like, and you become emotionally affected, and you carry that, you unknowingly, in your subconscious. And you carry that around with you throughout the day, and that is what gives you that feeling of struggling, because you're kind of, you know, moving around with all that burden on your shoulders or, you know, wherever. And so when you go to sleep, you don't get a good sleep because you've got all the stuff, you know, inside. But if you're aware of that and start looking at each thing in that perspective, from a different paradigm, shift your thinking, move from the point of view that you have to another point of view. Looking at the other person with respect and trying to understand why or how that person is feeling or doing. And everything changes. There's a whole shift. Now, I've just been going on, monologue. I'm easy if somebody wants to kind of share a thought, an observation, some experience. I think it'll be terrific. It'll be of great value. So feel free if you think of something that you'd like to share related to anything that I'm saying, or maybe not even related to that, but the same area. Please feel free. Just stop me and share your ideas, because all of you have been through a lot of this. So I think it'll be a lot more fruitful if if there's some sharing happening. So my request: feel free to share. Now, I said paradigm, right? We all kind of again look at the world from a certain vantage point. Now we sometimes get stuck to that. That's really the challenge, because we get stuck to that and we don't budge from there. That's the view, that's the viewpoint, that's the opinion, that's it. We become rigid in that opinion. That causes us a lot of pain, so much pain. If only we were more flexible. And I think you've heard of this analogy where you see those bamboo trees versus those oak trees, Bigger trees, strong, big, but a big gust of wind comes, or a tidal wave comes and the tree falls over. Whereas those bamboo, they're 50 feet, 60 feet tall, but they bend. And they accept it. They don't resist. They don't fight it. The moment you resist, the moment you fight, you break. So accept it. So paradigm is something where we have a set paradigms, which have been as a result of a conditioning, our background, our childhood, whatever, has happened to us. But what are we doing about it? Are we stopping and trying to change those? When we say design your life, you've got to sit down and do some designing. Really. It's not going to happen on its own. You want to design anything, you've got to map out a plan, put together the different parts of it, piece them together, decide where you want to put where, and actually work on it. So you can design your life, but you've got to put in that effort. So one of the things that you can do is go back and see, what are my paradigms? What are my set ways of thinking? What is it that I'm refusing to move away from? What do I believe so strongly in that I don't listen to anybody else? I just kind of blank my mind and say, no, I can't accept that. That can't be true, because this is what I believe in. Are we closed-minded or are we open-minded? Most of the times, this is where the problem comes in. Because we're so closed-minded, we're so much into our own way of thinking, we refuse to look at anything the other person says. And this immediately break off rapport. There's no meeting point. So how can you take a relationship forward? This applies everywhere. Personal, business, wherever. Are there any questions, any points that some people like to, or is it all okay? Everybody's comfortable?
I'll make a comment.
Yeah, sure, Susan.
That point that you were making about the bamboo in the wind,
Yeah.
I just had an experience last week where I thought, oh yeah, I'm doing great. just going with the flow, all these things where life was throwing things at me. I was like, yeah, no worries.
Yep.
And then I got to a point where I was like, enough. And I realized I wasn't actually going with the flow. I was doing it with a bit of resistance anyway. So then I decided enough instead of actually continuing. And I had to laugh at myself and go, okay, yeah, nice one. You weren't actually going with the flow.
Yeah, but you know, the most wonderful thing about that, Susan, is that you became aware, right? You became aware that most of the time, you see, you're not even aware that we're doing something wrong. But you kind of, because you've been on this journey, like myself, and I know your background, is you became aware. And it happens to me a lot. I catch myself many a time doing something that I've told myself not to do. But it's just second nature to us that we start doing it. But the good thing is that you've got this mechanism now, because of that awareness, you catch yourself and say, oops, that's not what I promised myself not to do, so I'm going to step back and, that's fantastic.
And as you've got a background as an engineer, so it might be easy for you, okay, correction, whereas I'm a woman, and I think with us, we beat ourselves up a little bit sometimes, instead of just being, okay, simple, turn the knob or whatever it is to make a sort of a metaphor there.
Yeah. Look, it's not, it's got nothing to do with engineering as such. It's just a matter of,
It's men versus women.
I'm not going to go down that path. I respect your opinion. I'll look at it from your point of view. But it's just a matter of, just being aware. Just being aware. I mean, look, we've heard this said by the ancient sages, seers, in holy books, wherever people, they've said that enlightenment is self-awareness. Really. That's it. When you say somebody is enlightened, it just means that they're self-aware. They're aware of themselves. They're aware of who they are. And this is what people are talking about. That's done. I mean, once you got there, everything else just becomes easy. Sure.
The Tao religion calls it the path of least resistance.
Sorry, come on.
The Tao religion of
Tao religion, yeah.
path of least resistance.
Yes, absolutely. Path of least resistance, yes,
Yeah, I've got a simple analogy. I have to think when you look through a kaleidoscope and you see a picture, and my feeling is if you change your mindset, even just the tiniest fraction, that picture will completely change and opens up new concepts for you. And sometimes that's all we need to do is just turn that little change in your thinking, and you will see a completely different picture. And what you perceive is what you believe. So you need to change the picture.
Very powerful, just a wee bit. Right? You don't even have to in a kaleidoscope, you don't have to done it too long. Just a tiny bit. The whole thing changes. It's just so powerful, yeah. And how do we apply it in our life? That's a real key. That's what we're trying to talk about this here. It's good when it's in a kaleidoscope. How do we do it in our day-to-day life? And it's not easy, but then you've got to put in that effort and be conscious about it and have the want, the desire to become a better person. Become a more happier person, get into the flow really, make life effortless, make life easy. And at the end of the day, be happy. I mean, that's what we all want. We can say anything that we want, but at the end of the day, that's what we want. Happiness, peace of mind, or inner peace, fulfillment, contentment, that's what it is. We could be wanting to become a CEO of an organization, building up a huge multi-billion-dollar business, having $1 billion of money, having all the best cars, having the biggest mansion. But at the end of the day, it is why. And the why is bigger than the how. You all have heard that. If you've got a big enough reason, the why, the house will take care of itself. The why at the end of the day is about just having happiness. And there's a very common or I think famous story about a guy who's lying down under a tree, a beggar really, and he's sleeping. And so this guy comes up and asks him, "Hey, what are you doing over here?" And he says, "Oh, I'm sleeping." And he says, "Why? When you want to work?" He says, "For what?" He says, "If you work, you can, get some money." He says, "For what?" He says, if you get money, you can build a house." "For what?" "If you build a house, you get a nice room, a nice bed, a nice soft cot." "For what?" "You get good sleep." He says, what do you think I'm doing now? I'm getting good sleep. Boy, go through all that. At the end of the day, that's really what you want, good night's sleep. All right, thanks for that. Mabel, Susan, and that's interesting. It looks nice, yeah. I was looking at different images to put up. And you start practicing that idea. And these small shifts, just like the kaleidoscope, the small shifts can have a huge impact in your life, huge impact on your relationships, huge impact on your health. So this principle states essentially that human behavior, everything that we do, every single thing that we do, is either to avoid pain or to gain pleasure. Every single thing that we do is to either avoid pain or to gain pleasure. Simple, right? That sounds simple. Now the magic in that is, if it's that, we all know we have habits, right? Some of them are not very good habits, disempowering habits, dysfunctional habits that are holding us back from getting to where we want to go. And we all know this. We all have habits, including myself. The habits. For example, one of the things that weight loss is a very, very common thing. We all want to become trim and slim and healthy, and we want to lose weight, and we know how to do it, but we're not able to do it. What's holding us back? Really? It's simple. Exercise more and eat less. We all know it, but something's holding us back. There's so many people who know it, but not able to do it. Why is it that they're not able to do it? Why is it that some people are able to do it, some people are not able to do it? And the key there is, again, what you associate the process to. So let us say you want to lose weight and you want to exercise. So there's pain and pleasure associated with both. Having the weight, or wanting to lose the weight, or having the weight, and then needing to do the exercise. Now, the balance is what determines what you do. So the pain of being overweight is less than the pain of exercising. So you associate in your own mind, and he calls it neuro-associative conditioning, NAC, that you in your own mind associate more pain with actually having to go out and exercise than the pain of actually being overweight. As long as that's the condition in your mind, you're never going to go and exercise. But if you can just start working internally again and trying to associate pleasure, and you can do that. There's a step-by-step process how you can do it. You start associating pleasure with working out and eating less and eating the right food. It happens just like that. And how do you get to do that? By the steps like, for example, imagining yourself in your own mind's eye, slim and trim, and doing a jog, or whatever you want to do, and reinforcing that, visually reinforcing that on a continuous basis. Putting up, whatever that picture boards or visual boards or whatever you call it, putting it up there, and getting people, being accountable to other people, in your own mind running the whole film over and over and over again, seeing yourself in the condition that you want to. Slowly but steadily, it takes time. But you're actually conditioning yourself, you're conditioning your neuro associations. And there'll come a time when the pain of actually exercising will become less than the pain of being where you are. And then things will happen. So it's important that we understand this concept, because this determines a lot of things that we want to do. And changing habits is straight away there. Any habit that you want to change, or you haven't been able to, if you can work on this, again, go back, my request is I don't have the time to go through the details, but if you go through, you've got tons and tons of information out there on the web. Just look at it and see how pain pleasure principle can work for you, can work to your benefit. And if you can take out those steps and start implementing them, take one habit that you've always wanted to get rid of or change, but you haven't been able to do it in spite of all your best efforts. Get this, try out the steps, and give it some time. Give it a month, a couple of months, whatever. Just try it out. And you start seeing the shift happen. And once you've done it for one habit, Now you know it's going to work. You can do it for other habits. So start discarding all the dysfunctional habits and start building up all those empowering habits. Habits that will take you forward to the goals that you want. Very powerful principle. I already spoke about this, but this is a crucial factor because, like I said, we've got to realize that we are multidimensional beings and we've got to have this balance. Extreme is not good. We sometimes tend to do that, and we can find hundreds of instances in our life where extreme is always bad. Follow the middle path. Try and get the right balance. Everything. Whether it's professionally, whether it's relationships, whether it's anything that you do, anything that you eat, anything that your behaviors, emotions, feelings, anything extreme will always do you more harm. Sometimes we think, no, I think extremity sometimes is good. Having more ambition, having the burning desire, but just burning up. So you've got to get that balance. It's important that we get this balance in all the 7 areas that I spoke about. Very, very critical, because otherwise you'll end up going on one dimension, and I was a believer in this. I used to believe that you can't, reach the end of the road in one area if you have to compromise on other areas. That was my belief, my limiting belief. And I thought that, how can you, move forward in all areas? It's just not possible. But then I realized, no. Somebody mentioned this to me, and I realized that, no, it can be done. You can work in all 6, 7, 8, 5, whatever areas that you choose, and move forward on those areas. That gives you the right balance. The right sense of balance will give you, the energy and power to move forward. So those were some concepts that essentially we needed to understand. It's important that we get an idea of the definitions or what drives us, what makes us do what we do, human behavior. Because once we know that, it's like any other subject. Then I can take engineering as an example. It's just like that. If you don't know the fundamentals of engineering, you can't become a good engineer. So you've got to have the fundamentals of human behavior, because otherwise you can't become a good human being. Simple as that. We're all human beings. We've got behaviors, we've got emotions, we've got feelings. If we don't understand the fundamentals of these, how do we manage? We could be a great engineer, we could be a great scientist, we could be great something else. But this is who we are. This is essentially who we are. So irrespective of what profession you are in, and this is really the challenge. Because the thing I'm so passionate about is today's education, and this is something I don't know, I need to work on. This is something that I really want to work on. Children are taught everything but this. They're taught absolutely no life skills. They're not taught how to deal with a challenge in their life. They're taught history, geography, mathematics, I don't know, whatever science. But when you are in that 20% of category, when you're having a mental challenge, you're having an emotional issue, none of those subjects help you. You can't do your mathematics, logical problems to sort that out. So it's important that we understand these, and this has to be part of the education curriculum. It's a tall task, but that's something that I really want to work on. Some level, I mean, it may not be something big, maybe one session in a week. Just talking to people and explaining to them that, look, no, these things are important, and these things will help them deal with challenges as they go along and they go along the school. So now these are some of the things that you need to have. These are basically tools that you have to deal with issues that come up. We've all heard of physical fitness, and that comes up as a slide, but I'm not going to talk about that. And we all know how important it is to be physically fit. And that's why you can see gyms sprouting up and fitness classes and so many things. Because as human beings, we've got to be fit physically. But we've also got to be mentally fit. Now, we sometimes think that the profession that we're doing, or the subjects that we're studying, or the area of expertise that we have, the skills, is our mental fitness. It is, to a certain extent. But it's also important to sharpen the saw, as it were, of a mind. You've got to continuously sharpen the saw. So you've got to continuously work on your mind. And one of the things that I found very powerful is this. Now again, a lot of people have different meanings to this, right? All that this is really is just sitting quietly in silence. That's it. There are different kinds of meditation, and all of us have heard of some kind of meditation or the other. And we think, oh, it's complicated, how do I do it? I need a guru, I need that, I need to go to India or Himalayas or wherever, I don't know. But all that this really is just sitting down quietly in silence. Silence is golden. Very powerful. And if you can, on top of that, concentrate on your breath. I'm not going to go into that, but if you can do some research on that. Our breathing is a very powerful tool that we have. And the breathing has got the ability to connect you to your inside. How it works, I don't know, but it does. So you've got to.
Yeah, actually, that reminds me that Joe Rogan talks about using isolation tanks, and how basically it's like this sort of tank where it desensitizes you from everything: your sight, sound, smell, touch. It's basically a tank with water in it. It's like 60% salt, and the water is heated up to your body temperature, so that you can't smell, you can't see anything because there's no light. The salt in the air basically destroys all smell. And you're sitting there for about half an hour to an hour, and it helps you relax and reach a meditative state where the more often you go, the closer you can get towards enlightenment.
Yep.
There are tanks in the hills in Perth. So.
Yeah. Look, that's one technique. That's one technique. I mean, there are hundreds of techniques. Different people follow different techniques, and they have their own technique. You can start your own technique. You know, the whole idea here is that in your normal day-to-day life, pretty much every moment of your life, other than when you're sleeping, not also when you're not in deep sleep, you're bombarded by hundreds and millions and billions and trillions of information and data and so on. So your mind is constantly in a state of flux. And all that you're doing here is to kind of recharging your batteries, if I can say that. Just getting back to your source in the sense that silence is very powerful. I mean, when you're quiet, and it doesn't need to be perfect. We sometimes tend to think that, oh, we've got to have the perfect setting, or the tank, or I've got to understand how it's done, or whatever. I'm just saying, no, forget about all that, because you might not end up doing it at all throughout your life if you're looking for the perfect answer. All that I'm saying is just spend 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Just try it out. You lose nothing. 5 minutes, you can't do that. Just try to get yourself to a state of just peace and calm, just quietness, just silence. Find a place, find a spot, wherever you are, and just close your eyes and just be silent. And you'll find that it may not happen immediately. It might take some time. It might take a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. I don't know. You can start finding that that's having a positive impact on the way you think, on the way you behave, on the way you look at things. Profound effect on everything. So you'll start noticing this after some time. You'll start suddenly realizing, okay, I would have reacted differently. So all these things that we're talking about are all like, it's like a number lock. So you've got all these different tumblers, the numbers. And so you're working on each of these numbers, and then all the numbers safe opens. So the key is that you've got to start working on each of these things. And one thing by itself is not going to sort it out. But once you start working on each of these things, you're at different levels in each of these, and it's a continuous process. It's a continuous process till you die. I mean, you're never there. So, but as you do it, just quality of life will start enhancing. you'll start noticing this, as I've noticed. You'll start finding this. So meditation, when I say, is just being with yourself, in silence, in solitude, if that's possible. If not, that's fine. When you have people around you, but try and be yourself. And on top of that, if you can concentrate on your breath, that's magic. Because breath's got powerful properties, abilities to connect you to your source, and it'll give you a lot of energy and power to carry on. Now, so that's just one part of mental fitness, besides all the other things that you do in terms of reading and your hobbies and skills that you do. We all know about this, so it's important that we're all physically fit, because an unfit body is an unfit mind, an unfit mind is an unfit body, and so on. Now, we've spoken about this. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not having fun, it's not worth it, really. That's what my viewpoint is. We've got one opportunity to live a life, right? We don't know if we're going to ever get this opportunity again. Now, if you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying ourselves, what's the point, really? Really, what's the point? We get so caught up in so many things that we forget about this. We don't even look at this. Let's stop, let's reflect, and let's look at this. If you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying the journey, is there any purpose in going on that direction? Because, like I said, 99.9999% of your life is journey. It's just, you're just moving from 1 minute to the next minute, 1 second to the next second, 1 day to the next day, and so on. So if you're not having fun today, now, here, I think it's pointless. I think it's really, it's got a big focus. So again, we come back to the same thing. If you're doing something that you love doing, if your goals are aligned to who you are, you'll have fun. Because that's not work then. And we all talk about retirement and work-life balance. There's no work-life balance. Work is part of life. How can you have work and life balance? Is work separate from life? I just don't understand that. A lot of people talk about work-life balance. No, work's part of life. It's a big part of life. You spend a lot of time in work. How can you separate work from life? So, and if you're doing something that you love doing, it's not work. It's fun, right? It's a game that you're playing, and that's really it. So if we have this as a tool in our armory, having fun on a regular basis, day to day, just having fun, getting up, just having fun doing everything that you're doing, just having fun going to sleep, just having fun meeting people, just having fun. What are we doing? That's worth it. That's something. If you're having fun, we know what this is, right? Authenticity. Yeah? We know this. How much percentage of our life are we being inauthentic? We're being somebody else. We're not being who we truly are. We all are at different points of time. But what percentage? We become other people. Are we living true to who we are? Are we showing up as who we really are? We're not. Most of the time we are in front of the client, we look be somebody else. In front of our friends, we're somebody else. In front of our spouse, we're somebody else. And we kind of, it's always a show that we put up. And I'm as guilty of that as you are. But hey, it's an awareness that unless you are authentic, again, you're not going to have fun. Just be true to yourself. Be who you really are deep down, deep inside. Because we make up. We do makeup outside, but we also make up inside. We change our looks and features to be somebody who we really are not. And you can only carry that so much, so long. After that, it starts, hitting back at you. You can't be somebody else. You've got to be yourself. But we're trying to be somebody else, and it takes up a lot of energy, and that's why we feel so tired. Because we're play acting, we're pretending to be somebody who we are not. Why? For whatever reason. Because we've gone to the wrong direction, we've got the wrong goals, and we've got to please the wrong people, and we've got to look good because, for whatever reason.
How would you differentiate? Because a person would play different roles in different times. In office, you are different. With a subordinate, you are the boss. With the boss, you are the subordinate. And at home, you are a husband. With the kids, you are a parent. How do you aggregate, you've got to play different roles.
You're playing different roles. But you're playing each role with authenticity. It's not the role that you play. You can play different roles. And we are multidimensional, I said that. But the key is that be authentic in whatever role you play. So when you're a father, be the father that you really are, rather than trying to be a father that the neighbor is or somebody else is. Just because he has done that, you want to do that. Or just because he has said that, you want to say that. This is what we do most of the times. If you're being a boss, be true to yourself. Say what you want to say, do what you want to do, rather than saying, and you want to say something and do something, but you're saying and doing something else.
Conflict begins from the boss. When the boss says, say this to you.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this is the reality. But the challenge is to be able to fight that and get out of that. That's why it's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, this all sounds easy for me to say this, but look, the bottom line is that we all struggle with it. But again, getting that awareness, trying to be who you really are, being authentic, because that again communicates same thing to the other person. If you are not being authentic, the other person will not be authentic. And so you've got two inauthentic people trying to build up a relationship, trying to build up a bond, trying to work out a deal, trying to work out a partnership. How will it work? It will never work. And that's why after some time the partnership breaks, or the bond breaks, or the relationship breaks. Because you've been inauthentic. You've not shown your true self. And then slowly but steadily the authenticity comes out at different points of time when you're vulnerable. And we all are vulnerable at different points of time. That's when your true self comes out. And then the other person sees, oops, this is totally different from what they projected. And there goes your relationship. So, as much as possible, the practical reality sometimes you've got to put on a face, you've got to put on a show, you've got to put on some makeup. Yep, that's fine. But the goal is to try and be as authentic as possible. So, yeah.
Sometimes too it boils down to you can have say for instance in a career-based situation where you have a goal, you have something you want to achieve, a position you want to achieve, so on. But if like what you're saying, that your boss has a different point of view to you or has a different direction to you, you have to align with their core values and beliefs to achieve the same, to achieve your goal under the same guidance of someone else. So if you don't share the same core values and beliefs as them to get you there, then that's where that conflict is going to come in.
Yep.
In achieving
Sure.
the ultimate outcome in
Yeah.
that.
I listen to what you say, I hear what you say. But the point is, Bernie, if you align to their values, your boss's values, you might get there.
If it's still authentic to you, yeah.
But if there's a conflict, whose core values are you going to follow? We've all heard of holding up to our principles, right? Our values. So you might have a principle or value that's so strong in you, you won't budge from that. Doesn't matter what happens. Because that's more important to you than getting to that position. Because otherwise what will happen is, and we tend to do this often, we compromise our values, we suppress that, and we show as if we are aligned with the boss's values just because we want to get to the position. That's what I was talking about. That's a hollow position. Because you get to that position, so you achieve the goal of getting to the position.
But you haven't actually fulfilled your agenda.
But you'll still feel unfulfilled, you feel empty,
That's
you'll
right.
feel.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. But if you stick to your goals, stick to your principles, your values, your core, what's driving you, even if you don't get that position, you will still feel much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to say here, that we must realize that sticking to our core values and being who we really are is the right way, is the right path to attaining happiness and fulfillment and, being a complete person. Rather than compromising on that for something that seems to be good, but, at the end of the day, it won't give you happiness. And a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
But now we kind of have got an idea. So we can go and try and look at this and say, is it really possible? That if we stick to our goals and principles and values, irrespective of what happens outside, we're going to be happy. Because that's what we really want to be. But you think that by getting the position you're going to be happy, it doesn't happen. Yeah. So that's really it. So that requires strength of character. That requires belief, faith. That requires strong convictions. which is not easy to come by. So you just be yourself as much as possible. As much as possible. And take it one step at a time. Never, I mean, there's no such thing as perfection, so we can't be perfect, right? Perfection is just a perception. But try to just go on that path step by step, small steps. Small steps. Try and implement it in one area of your life, and then the next area, and so on. So, and try it. I mean, all that I'm saying is just making you aware, do your own research and try it out. Yep, very powerful concept again. Being responsible for everything that happens to you. Everything. You take responsibility for everything that happens to you. It's not Julia Gillard's fault. It's not the GFC. It's not the weather. It's not your competitor. It's not the market. Sounds easy? It's not easy. I know it. Yeah. How can I take responsibility for that? It can't be me. It has to be something outside. It's very difficult to come to terms with that. But the point, like I said, is the exterior is a reflection of the interior. The macrocosm is a reflection of the microcosm. So what's inside you is really what is being manifested. So in some way you've thought about something, you've felt strongly about something, that's why it showed up in your life. That's law of attraction, right? We've heard that. Everything that's happening to you is, in some way or the other, you've caused it. How? You've got to explore. Everything that happens to you. Everything that happens to you. And the best part, the beautiful thing about this is, once you realize that, it is very, very empowering. Because imagine, you think everything that's happening to me is because I've done something, I've thought something, I've said something, I've believed in something. It's because of me, and therefore, I can change that when, where, how I want it. Isn't that empowering? Everything that happens to me in my life is because I've caused it to happen. And if you believe in that, you can then decide, the next step is, logical step is that if I've caused it, I can uncause it. There's no such word as uncause, but I'm just saying it. What it really means is that you can change it. You can make it anything that you want. Because you've got the power. All the power resides in you. You've got total control. Whereas, often we feel out of control. Most of the times we feel out of control. We are on this treadmill and we feel out of control. We feel out of breath. We feel tired. But now, once you realize this, you feel you're in control. You can take control. So, it's also called being at cause or being at effect. You know, being the cause or being at effect. So if you say, I'm a victim, everything that happens to me, outside, somebody, I'm a victim. That's a story that you tell yourself, that's a story that you tell everybody else, because, you know, it fulfills your need for recognition. Because sometimes nobody recognizes you, nobody notices you. But when you start crying and becoming a victim, people come and notice you. A lot of the times. You realize that a lot of the times people build up those stories because they just want to be noticed. They want to be recognized because they're not being recognized in any other way. So, self-responsibility is a very, very powerful thing that if you can start implementing and start looking at everything that happens to you, just step back for a moment and just think about it and see how it could have been caused by you. It's very powerful. And see, once you start thinking that way, you start wondering, oh, it's good. I've caused it, so I can change it. And just the thought that I can change it, is kind of liberating. It's very powerful.
Isn't it like if you start taking too much responsibility, self-responsibility, you become a little bit of self-blaming on yourself as well? So
it's better than blaming other people. Because you can change it. The point I'm trying to make here is anything that is inside of you, related to you, is in your control. Anything that is outside of you is not in your control. So I can say, you know, Thiru, Barry did this and therefore, you know, because of that, I have no control over how he thinks or what he does, or I have absolutely no control. So I continue to be a victim because of something somebody else says or something else somebody else does. Especially if it is something like the economy or somebody else who you have no control over, because you just become a victim and you find an excuse and you go on.
Position of the planets.
Position of the planets, yes, absolutely. That's a very powerful one. How can you go and change the position of the planets? We do that. We do that. We all do that. Because we were born at such and such a time, this was the position of the planets, and therefore I'm meant to do this. I'm meant to suffer. I'm meant to go through this. This is my, what's written in my life. This is how I'm meant to be. I'm meant to be poor. I'm meant to be rich. I'm meant to be cruel. I'm meant to be whatever. This is fate, right? We do that. But then we do nothing about it. And we just go on day by day complaining and we just suffer that. And that's it. There are people like that. There's going to be people like that. Everybody wants to be changed. Everybody can't be changed. But the point is, do we want to be like that? Do we want to be in that part of the group? Or do we want to take responsibility and change ourselves and design our life the way we want to be? And chart our own course. I'm trying to break it up a little bit so that make it work.
So living with you, it hasn't been easy. People see me, but they think of you. Now with all this going on, it's going to be worse than ever.
It don't have to be.
No, sure it does.
Why? You got a lot going on, kid.
Oh, my last name? That's the reason I got a decent job. That's the reason why people deal with me in the first place. Now I start to get a little ahead. I start to get a little something for myself. And this happens. Now I'm asking you as a favor not to go through this, okay? This is only going to end up bad for you, and it's going to end up bad for me.
You think I'm hurting you?
Yeah, in a way you are.
It's the last thing I ever wanted to do.
I know that's not what you want to do, but that's just the way that it is. Don't you care what people think? Doesn't it bother you that people are making you out to be a joke, and that I'm going to be included in that? Do you think that's right? Do you?
I ain't gonna believe this. But you used to fit right here. I'd hold you up to say to your mother, this kid's gonna be the best kid in the world. This kid's gonna be somebody better than anybody ever knew. And you grew up good and wonderful. It was great just watching every day. It was like a privilege. Then the time comes for you to be your own man and take on the world, and you did. But somewhere along the line, you changed. You stopped being you. You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you you're no good. And when things got hard, you started looking for something to blame, like a big shadow. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you got to be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that. I'm always going to love you no matter what. No matter what happens. You're my son, you're my blood. You're the best thing in my life. But until you start believing in yourself, you ain't gonna have a life. Don't forget to visit your mother.
Sunil, just one question. As you mentioned that we should start taking self-responsibility. does that mean we should take self-responsibility for everything? Or if certain things happen which are beyond your control, so we should not be whinging about it, or we should be some way taking the responsibility for that as well? And so how do we differentiate that certain things, of course, would happen which are not in your control?
Sure.
So, I mean, as you said that, you know, we should not be blaming or taking a shelter, you know, that something has happened beyond my control, and you're trying to shelter yourself under that and taking an excuse and whinging about it. So, how do we differentiate it? Say that, oh no, we should not whinge about it, and we should move on, take a challenge, or is there something which, you know, we should be taking responsibility for that as well, or?
Yeah. You've heard of Stephen Covey, right? 7 Habits of People. He talks about what's called the circle of concern and the circle of control. Now, the circle of control is a subset of the circle of concern. So there are so many things that happen to us that's concerning to us, that affects us positively or negatively, right? Now, there are some things that you can do something about. There's a circle of control. The circle of control is small. The circle of concern is big. And there are things that affect you, but you can do nothing about, right? So you've got 2 options, really. You can sit down there and whinge about it and complain and moan and be a victim, or you can accept it. So that's where you get acceptance, and I'll come to that in a minute. That's where acceptance is. You don't resist, because the moment you resist, you break. So
but there will be certain things where you have to take acceptance.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean it's a self-responsibility, because you might not.
The thing about self-responsibility is if you don't take self-responsibility, you won't do anything about it. Because you cannot do something about somebody else or outside of you. You don't have control. You can only do something about yourself. So the point about taking responsibility is once you take responsibility, you start looking at it, you come out with creative ways of trying to solve that issue. Sometimes you can get it solved, sometimes it can't. But it doesn't matter, but at least you start attempting it. So out of 10 challenges that you come across, if you don't take self-responsibility, you might be able to overcome 1 challenge. But if you take self-responsibility, you might be able to overcome 8 challenges out of the 10.
So how do you take a self-responsibility of a natural disaster? I mean, it's something you have to accept and move on. So I understand where you're coming from, saying that if you take self-responsibility, you'll be more motivated to face that challenge and, you know, overcome that. But is that really a self-responsibility, or is that an acceptance and you're strong enough to take the challenge to move on?
I guess it's acceptance. Really, look, I mean, there are questions that even I don't have answers for. I mean, these are things that we have only, whatever we're learning and whatever I've learned is just a small part, tip of the iceberg. And there's so many things that we don't understand. So in that instance, if there's a natural disaster, if something's happened, you accept that and move on. I mean, again, you've got 2 choices. Either to move on or to stop and complain and let the rest of your life be affected by that negatively, or accept it and move on and create a possibility for yourself. So you choose whichever is best for you. So yeah.
Your responsibility might be just my reaction to the event. I can't control the responsibility. How I responded to the event. Not that I can change, and I can't make a tidal wave go back.
Yeah.
But I can,
absolutely.
I can choose not to make it issue my life anymore.
Not let it impact my life any more than it already has. So it's already impacted my life in some way, but do I let that impact the rest of my life or not? Sorry, maybe you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say a bit as the gentleman talked about, it's your response, and I think life will happen to you, whether you want it to or not. But how you choose to respond to that is about developing skills in being resilient. And I think an example from myself in a family situation, I have 4 siblings. Now we all grew up with the same parents in the same environment, but we've chosen different ways to deal with the experiences we had as children.
Yep.
And I can see the impact that it's had on some of my brothers and sisters as opposed to myself. But it's all about our own choices. And I'm the youngest, yet I can see it in my older brothers and sisters still struggle with some things that I think, why can't you just let it go?
Yeah.
You know, but that's about living a life of regurgitating and choosing to, and maybe that's a point that they can't resolve the issues for them. So, and it's really interesting to see because, you know, it is about choice and it's personal and it's how it affects you.
Right. So when it comes to choice, again, the point is if you don't take responsibility, you become a victim.
Yes.
It's not in your control. So you say, I can't choose, and I have to be a victim, and I have to mourn, and I have to whinge, and so on. But if you take responsibility, you're saying, I'm taking responsibility for the way I respond, for the way I think, for the way I behave, irrespective of what incident has taken place. And it's about what I can do. It's got nothing to do with, do I control the natural disaster? I can't. Do I control anything outside? I can't.
Yeah, so the underlying responsibility.
How I respond to that, or how I view it, how I let it impact my life.
And how you learn from it as well.
How I learn from it,
Because it's an opportunity.
That's right. It's an opportunity to grow. Yeah. Actually, this comes to that in a sense. I mean, what we're talking about here is that we've got things that we attach to. People, things, so many things in our life. And like I said, we can design a life to a certain extent. But there are things that are beyond our control. Right? There is so many things beyond our control. And sometimes we let those things affect us adversely and let it ruin the rest of our life. And detached attachment is a concept whereby you attach to somebody, attach to something, but with the awareness that there's a detachment to it. With the awareness that it could be taken away from you. Nothing is permanent. There could be something that could happen then. Because once you're mentally prepared and you say that, fine, I'm attached to that person, that thing, that feeling, whatever it is, but I'm also, in a sense, detached. In the sense that I'm prepared to let it go if it comes to that. And we've seen this in many instances where people have had the near and dear ones pass away, for example, and they let it ruin the rest of their life. It's not grieving, it's actually letting it affect their life, and they throw away their life really. You know, so you don't have control over that. So it's outside your circle of control. How you react to that, yep, there is grieving, something's happened that has impacted you negatively. But then you've got to move on. You've got the rest of your life, you've got to move on. And you've got to look at the possibilities that come up. And possibilities come up every time. So the detached attachment is the ability to be able to hang on to things, hold on to things, but with the awareness that those things could be taken away from you. Those people could be taken away from you. Once you've got that, then it becomes easier to handle the situation when it arises. Yes, ma'am?
The other, sorry, Brian.
There you go.
The other side of the coin, I think, is where young people, especially at risk, have an attachment to a negative lifestyle, but haven't had the positive experiences, so they understand and realise they can become detached, and that's and through inexperience of good things happening to them. Yep. And their attachment is to a negative lifestyle that they believe will be forever. And it's being able to enlighten these young people to understand that they can detach themselves from that.
Absolutely.
They don't have the skills.
No. But
they think that those are habits
that
they're stuck with for the rest of their lives.
Because that's their life experience.
Yeah.
It's knowing an empty, no, hang on, the brain in gear with tongue. It's what they know is comfort versus what they don't know, and it's having something to just gently mould the difference in their lives so that they aren't completely empty in their empty lives, if that makes sense. They actually get something, little tasters of something different, like we were saying, so that it helps to steer them. Yeah, because it's like taking away something that, even though we know it's destructive, by taking it away from them, it's a loss completely.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they know that that's not permanently with them. Somebody could take it away from them. Once they have that awareness that somebody takes it away, they're able to deal with it much more effectively and much more positively than otherwise. Yeah, that's it. Harry, you had something to say?
I was, I suppose maybe it's just a picture, but how does that relate to holding on to goals lightly?
Holding on to?
Onto goals.
Holding on to goals.
So if we get very attached to a goal,
yeah,
and yet we don't have that perspective of detached attachment, then are we potentially again going to, so it's related to that.
Absolutely. I think it's equally important there because a lot of times we don't get our goals. We don't get all our goals. I mean, we might put down 10 goals, we might get only 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know. There would be 4, 5, 6 goals that we don't get. So what? Do we let those 4, 5 goals that we don't get impact our life? And we don't even enjoy these 2 or 3 or 4 goals that we've got, or do we just let that go and we realize it? Yeah, it's always the case. Always the case. So yeah. So yeah, it is something where you kind of always know that there's something beyond your control. There's something out there that's happening that you're not even aware of, and you might be secure in the feeling that I've got everything, I've got this, even money. I mean, you could be a billionaire and you might think that I've got everything under control. But something could happen that, the whole thing might go, and it happens. It has happened. And so what happens then? Do you go and jump over the bridge and commit suicide, or do you move on with life? A lot of people do that because they let that impact them. They didn't have the detached attachment here.
Because that also comes back to the fact that if you balance all aspects of your life, you've always got other things taking pause from the things that aren't going right.
Absolutely. Now, when I spoke about the 6 core needs that we all have, one of the things that talks about, the concept talks about, which I didn't mention here, is having more than one vehicle to fulfill each of those needs. So let's say we've got a need for love and connection. Okay, we need love. We need to be loved. We want to love other people. Now, if you've got only one person in your life that you're going to be loving and receiving love from, what happens if something happens to that person? You don't get any more love. You can't love anymore. And then you're deprived of that need and you're finished. So one of the things that they say is every need that you have, all the 6 needs, make sure that you've got more than one vehicle to fulfill those needs. Be it a hobby, be it a job, be it something else, but different vehicles. Because if one of those vehicles goes away, which can happen, you still have something to fall back on. And very importantly, what you said, Bernie, was that yes, if you've got a balance, then you've got multiple pillars to hold you up. If you've just got one pillar, you're just focusing on your career, and you go, you become, and then suddenly, something happens, and then you're thrown out. You can collapse. You're finished. Because you've got to put so much energy, so much focus, so much drive, and so much of time, 10, 20, 15 years, to get into that spot. And something happens, and you lose your job, you lose your reputation, and you're out. Something maybe of no fault of yours. The company did something wrong, or you're something there.
But it even could be a predictable thing like retirement.
It could be.
Because some people that have reached retirement,
Very true.
Their identity's been based
Very
around
true.
their career and their job and all of that, and they retire, and then suddenly it's like, well, who am I? What am I? What have I got in my life?
Yeah, but that goes back to the fundamental. You see, if you're doing something that you love, you're not working. And if you're not working, then where's the question of retirement? We're thinking traditionally now. It's true. We're thinking traditionally. We're thinking that we're getting into a job, and we've got to do the job because we've got to earn a living. But we're not talking about designing a life. So we don't want to do that. No. It applies differently for different people. We can find our own ways of doing it. But the point here I'm trying to make is that try and do something that you love doing and get other people to pay you for doing that. What could be better than that? Doing something that you love and getting people to pay you for that. Isn't that the best thing that you can do? So if you're in that space, then there's no such thing called retirement. There's no such thing called work. It's all life. There's no work-life balance because it's all life. And if you're in that space, there's no retirement. But what you're saying is absolutely true. If you look at statistics, you find that a large percentage of people, as soon as they retire, end up in the wrong place within the next 2, 3, 4 years. Because they don't know what to do, they're lost. Because they don't, there's no meaning.
Because the only pillar holding them up is that job.
Sorry?
The only pillar holding them up is
That's
that
it,
job.
that pillar's
Well, I've
collapsed.
got to tell you, we thought we were coming to a superannuation seminar.
But it doesn't matter, look, I retired 3 years ago from
I have no clue
engineering
about superannuation.
and I love it. I just work as a musician, so I suppose all these life goals you said, if you want to do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can do it.
Well, the whole concept of retirement is a lie. It was just created by the US government. Yeah, because they want to employ young people, so they made it up.
Yeah, so a lot of it is governments and the way on. Yeah, economic policy. So let's move on. Running out of time. Dealing with failure. Now we saw that there's actually a video. I might skip that video. But the whole point is how do you deal with failure? And we've heard of this cliche called failure is a stepping stone to success, and we all fail. And there's also the saying that say yes and work out how. So the point here is that how do you perceive failure? How do you see failure? And we've all got this negative connotation of failure, everybody, because we're brought up like that. In our society, we're taught that failure is negative, failure is bad. It's got a negative connotation to it. When we say failure, what do we think of first? Something bad, right? Something negative. That's what we think. Because that's how everything is. But is it really bad? How is it bad? How is it negative? And when you really think about it, what makes failure bad or negative or something that you don't want to have? How? It's just a story that we made ourselves, right? It's just a story that we tell ourselves. If you can shift that thinking, if you can change that paradigm, and look at failure as a process, as a step, that if you've got to go to that step, you've got to move through the step. That's just one step in the whole process. Then it just becomes an essential step. And if it's an essential step, you've got to go through it. And if you've got to go through it, you'll accept it easier. And you'll deal with it much better. And the challenge we all face is that we come up with failure and then we don't know what to do. We let it get us down.
We let it become the last step.
Sorry?
We let it become the last
We
step.
let it become the last step. That's right. We stop over there. We don't move forward. We don't go further. So dealing with failure is important. So again, once we change, this is again quite challenging. It's not easy, and I'm still working on it. But I'm getting there, and I'm sure all of you, step by step. If you look at it, saying that, look, it's just a part of the learning process. It's part of the growing process. You make a mistake, you learn from it. You fail, you learn from it.
You only truly fail when you give up.
You truly fail only when you give up. And that's because we've got this notion that failure is bad, and we can't move forward after that. And then you want to say, Barry? No. I can see you.
Smart.
All right. Yeah, so look, this is really what it is. If we can deal with failure, a lot of our challenges are overcome straight away. Just the mindset of being able to look at failure. And I say, welcome failure, invite failure, try and fail as much as possible. Because if you try and fail as much as possible, you'll do a lot more things than you're doing right now. We don't do a lot of things because we're scared of failing. We don't attempt. We're scared of making a mistake. And again, it comes back to looking good, because we're scared. Why are we scared of making a mistake? Because we'll look bad. We're worried about what other people say, what other people think. And if we can get away from that and start... Sorry?
So it was the ego.
It's the ego also, yeah. I haven't mentioned the ego because lack of time, but yeah, that's really... Sorry?
Were you going to get onto that?
I'm not going to talk about ego now because we don't have time for that. Maybe in the next seminar I'll talk about ego. But essentially it is that. So if you can deal with failure, I'll skip that because I think a lot of you would have seen this. This is a gentleman who's got no arms, no legs. And he can do things that we can't do. It's amazing. Very inspiring. We've already spoken about this, challenges and problems. So, do we see them as problems or do we see them as challenges? Because they have got different connotations. The moment you say problems, it's negative. It's something that we don't want, it's something that we can't face. The moment you say challenges, it's an opportunity to grow. It's a positive thing, it's got a positive connotation. So once you start looking at things as challenges that help you to become a better person, to become, to grow, be able to grow, you will look at it differently, you treat it differently, you deal with it differently. Yep.
I saw in the word failure, lure, and I just googled by.
Sorry, what was the word?
In the word failure,
Yep.
there was lure.
Lure.
Yeah.
L-U-R-E.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I just googled the actual beginning part, F-A-I, and it can mean growth or beginning.
Yep.
As in a child's name.
Beautiful. Thank you.
No.
So there's growth built into failure.
Failure, so fail.
Yeah.
Means growth, beginning, so the lure of a new beginning.
Yeah, that's very fantastic. That's cool. Wow. I didn't know that. Thanks for that. There you go. So yep, that's basically what it is. Challenges or problems, how you look at it, how you deal with it. I'll skip that.
The best medicine.
Have you heard of it? Laughter is the best medicine. There's this thing called laughter clubs, started by somebody. We have the laughter clubs. And I'll tell you one practice that I do. I try, before I sleep, just go onto YouTube and watch funny videos.
Yeah.
Seriously, I've been doing this for the last, I think it's almost a year now. I try and do it every day, I may not do it every day, but most of the days, 90% of the days, before I go to sleep, I go onto YouTube, you can put Mr. Bean, you can put Laurel Hardy, you can put whatever your favorite cartoon clip is, and you can watch them over and over again, doesn't matter. They're never ending. So you just go to sleep with a laugh on your face, smile on your face, and that's very powerful. Just, just try it and see. So, laughter is very powerful, and so yeah, we sometimes tend to forget how to laugh and become so serious. There's just so much that we can talk about on this, and it's so powerful, so powerful. Gratitude is a feeling, that's where your ego goes out of the window. There's no ego. And that's the best way to get rid of ego. Because otherwise, everything that you do is determined by your ego. The moment you're grateful to somebody bigger than you, that's where the ego goes out of the picture. Then it's not about you. So you're giving yourself up to something beyond yourself, bigger than yourself. And it's very, very powerful to get you the right perspective. So when you're going through a very tough patch and you think it can't get worse, just sit down and just be grateful for the things that you have. And then just totally shift the whole thing around. And just sit down. Just when you're going through the worst patch, and try this. You're having the worst day of your life, everything's going wrong for you. Just sit down, take a sheet of paper, and just write down everything that you're thankful for. You're grateful for. And by the time you come to 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th on the list, you've forgotten what it was that was worrying you. It's just a small tip that you can try out and see. So it's very powerful. Yep.
I created a little booklet in a PDF file that's online. That's a gratitude book that allows you to put down your gratitudes in the morning and review them in the evening to see what you were grateful for during the day.
Wonderful.
And I give that away to people online.
Or just send it to me, or I'll forward it to them, or whatever. It'd be great. It'd be fantastic. And finally, you've got to have faith. Because all this will only work if you really believe in it. Because if you've got a closed mind, if you're skeptical, and if you say, all right, I heard all this, but how do I know it works? It may not work for him, but it may not work for me. You've closed yourself. And it'll never work for you. I can tell you that. Because if you don't believe, if you don't have faith, you're not going to open up your mind. You're not going to try it. You're not going to test it. But if you do that, so it's important to have faith. And that's why I said, don't take my word for it. This is not something new. Go, check it out, do your research, try it out, and see how it works for you. So I'll play this. I love this clipping. I'm sure some of you have seen it.
Your time is limited. So don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference. If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you'll most certainly be right. For the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something.
I love the video. The good thing about these people is that you've heard this from me. And you might be wondering, who's this guy telling me all this? Look at your heroes, people who you admire and respect. Whoever it is, go on to YouTube or read their books. Listen to what they are saying. And I do this very often. I've got my, what's it called, the Power Mind group. And I've got this group of people who I admire, respect, and I listen to what they say. People who are successful in their own way, whether it be, Will Smith, or actors, or Michael Jordan, or Tiger Woods, or Steve Jobs, or Bill Gates, or whoever it is, whoever your heroes are, just go and see what their reflections are. And if some of that, what they say, resonates with you, then why not try it out? If it helps them to get where they want, where they are, and you want to get there, modeling, try that out. Now, what I've put together, and I won't have time to show you that, but I've put together something called a summary of whatever I told you about, but some stuff more than that. And I'll send this across to you. It's there in the brochure that I've given you, the folders that I've given you. But the small print, I'll try and send that across to you. It's too small to read, but it's just a consolidated flow chart. Because I'm an engineer, maybe I must have done that. But it's a flow chart of everything in a very consolidated fashion, which you can start implementing step by step. So you start off with your purpose in life and your dreams and your goals and so on, and you come back, and all those elements that we spoke about are fitting in somewhere there. So if you can look at this map, and this is what I do, if you look at this map and start implementing these things one by one in your life, things will start changing. Now, the reason I'm doing this is obviously because I'm passionate about this, and I want to share this, right? Now, we've had about an hour, 2 hours and 15 minutes or so, and I've just touched, really touched only 20%, 30% of what is out there that we can share and what we can use. We don't have the time. Now, therefore, what I've done is I've put together seminars and workshops. The workshops are going into more detail on this. And one of the workshops, the most important workshop that I think is a self-discovery workshop, which is where we work with people trying to get them to understand themselves. So what it really is consisting of where you are at in your life, and some of you must have heard about the Wheel of Life, is where you are today in all the different areas of your life. We do the values elicitation, which is we try and help you to understand what are your top 5, 6, 8, 10 values. We do the passion test to understand again what your passions are, what drives you, what motivates you, what keeps you going. Beliefs, limiting beliefs, empowering beliefs. Habits, habits that hold you back, habits that take you to your goals. Language, I haven't spoken about language here. That's again a big topic. What is your language? Not only to other people, but to yourself. What do you tell yourself? What words do you use? Skills, more practical, what are you good at? SWOT analysis, we've heard that in the corporate and the professional context, but that's for life. The qualities, and personality profiling. Now this will give you a complete picture of who you are. Try and break it down into bits and pieces and understand who you are. Now, and your map of the world, obviously. So now this is really a full day, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. workshop. And the next one I've set up is on the 3rd of October. That's the price. However, for people here, anybody who you know is interested in doing this exercise, well do that. So just keep that in mind, that's there in the brochure. If you feel it's of value, and if you feel that it's going to help somebody, please let me know. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for any final feedback, questions?
I'd just like to thank Sunil for tonight. And there's no doubt personal growth is not only critical, but it's essential to us becoming who we want to be. And it's an absolute travesty that these things are not taught in our schools. And I know that Napoleon Hill spoke about the implementation of this sort of thing in education systems back in the 1930s, and that's about 80 years ago. We're still nowhere near this happening. And the belief systems that a lot of our youth are growing up in are a complete lie. And if you look to the next 6 weeks when they're coming to sit their final exams, you have many of these students believe that if they fail their exams, if they don't get into the course of their choice, and they fail. Now, I would challenge you to not only get yourself involved in these courses if you see them valuable for yourself, but to spread the word to as many people as you know, because I know that Sunil will make a difference, not only to your lives, but to their lives as well. So thank you for this evening, and we look forward to continued success of this.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time. Thank you so much. I hope you've got something of value out of it, and hope you can go back and implement. You've got my contact details, you've got the brochure. If there's anything at all that you want to talk to me about, clarify something on, feel free to give me a call, feel free to send me an email. I'd be more than happy to help you out. Thanks so much. Thank you once again. Have a safe journey home, and look forward to meeting up with you again. Thank you.